Hello and welcome to edition 5 of the Developer's Diary. In this installment, I'll be covering the topics of Delura 4's production notes and collaboration. Delura Episode 4's production introduced a lot of new tricks and skills for me. There were a lot of questions, though, that I had to ask myself as I was working on it. How do I allow a character with the inertia plugin attached to move when the inertia effect finishes? How do I create an animated display without using 2D images? How do I transition a moving character into and out of Motion Mixer? How do reflective surfaces work? How should I make water? How do I make convincing weapons fire effects? How can I best ease in and ease out of movement in my animations? All of these are just a few questions that I've asked myself as I was working on Delura's visual elements. There are a few issues, however, that I realized are holding me back, and I hope to address them sometime in the future. For instance, take a look at the scene file. Notice that there are hundreds of point lights being used. Well, every single frame that I render takes these lights into consideration and adds to calculation time. I've been told that by utilizing ambient occlusion or some form of light baking, I could have saved a lot of rendering time by performing the extra steps to implement them. That's something I'm going to be looking into for the next installment of Delura, and if it works like I expect it to, it's going to be a huge time saver. Another issue is my character models. There are things that I want to do with them that require better polyflow and more detail for at least their facial features to help with non-verbal language. Looking at this model, if I want him to bar his teeth in anger and show his gums or have some kind of weirded out look, I can't really do that with these models. I mean, geez, this guy looks like he's trying to impersonate a chipmunk. That's not what I wanted. I want this guy to look mad. In the most recent project as of this video, this morphic character model is essentially a prototype of what I'd like to be able to do with all of my other characters. Having a better poly flow will also allow me to give my characters better and cleaner expressions that behave predictably. So even though I'm far more concerned with animation than I am visual detail, this is one of those cases where the lack of detail actually hurts the animation process. One last thing is that, believe it or not, all of my content previous of Delura Episode 4 were actually rendered out as video, not still images. Back then, I didn't really know how to compile a sequence of images into video. My video editing software doesn't support image sequence import, so what was I to do otherwise? I discovered a free program deceptively called Virtual Dub, which I found to be extremely handy for putting image sequences together. Rendering out image sequences has a lot of advantages, and I feel pretty dumb looking back and not doing it in the first place. First, I can easily choose the format of my video at any time without re-rendering in Lightwave. So if I render something out and find the video's codec quality isn't cutting it, I can just go back and choose a different one. What if I want to compile my work in a different size? Well, I can now do that without a major loss of quality. Secondly, having rendered images gives me the ability to hand paint frames with a paint program. Now, when I see an animation error that only lasts for about 2 frames, I can just go in and hand paint that crap away instead of re-rendering or even opening Lightwave. I can add additions of detail that would otherwise be difficult to simulate in 3D, which really came in handy for enhancing all kinds of things, ranging from weapons fire and explosions to lighting this medical tool's discharge, as well as putting in speed blurring effects. There are other things that I'm working on to not only improve my workflow, but make things better in general, but I think I'll leave it at that for now. We move on to the second major topic of this developer's diary, and that is collaboration. Collaboration to me is a pretty sour subject. I mean, I can work pretty well with voice actors, at least I like to think I do, but just about everything visual or otherwise that I've tried to collaborate on has ultimately failed.
Well, it could have been worse.
I've done work that others have stolen and claimed as their own. I've done freelance work that should have been paid but never was. I've had people who demand compensation on projects that have nothing to do with earning profit in the first place. And for Delura, I've had a lot of people offer their talents only to disappear after trying to explain what I'd like done. So these things combined have left me with a pretty pessimistic and doubtful view of visual collaboration. In short, when I collaborate now, I not only expect to be disappointed, I expect my work to be abused, I expect to be lied to, I expect to sink time into communicating to someone who will probably disappear before doing anything. I expect the worst. I know for the most part that this attitude needs to go. If I keep thinking that everyone I work with will eventually let me down, why would anybody want to bother working with me in the first place? But how do you draw the line between caution and recklessness in reference to collaboration? It's just something that's been on my mind for a while, and it's really bothered me for a long time. So I turned to a fellow web series creator. Parker, also known as DJ PJ, is the producer of Adrenaline Street Racing. This web series combines quality visuals with good animation and a story that really connects you to the characters. Because I like what he's doing, I wanted to include his work for my Indie Highlights publication. Somehow, while asking Parker for permission to utilize footage from his show for Indie Highlights, it just dawned on me that we use the same 3D software. I mean, I know he used Lightwave too, but it just didn't really register on my mind until we started exchanging scene files and ideas, and I had remembered reading in various places that he was looking for help with this series, so I offered what I consider to be my greatest talent, and that's animation. Working on Parker's series did present some interesting situations, however. For one, I had to adjust to his rigging style. My character rigs are built to be quick, whereas Parker's are built to be more stable. Both of our rigs have their advantages and disadvantages, so I thought, why not combine the best of the two? I actually modified his rig slightly to utilize IK Booster to speed up the animation process. I'd never thought to use IK Booster with nulls before, but because of Parker's setup, it has me rethinking the way that I animate. His rig also inspired a few ideas of my own, such as this IK Booster foot rig, which will make doing walking animations a lot easier. On another subject, Parker actually has the benefit of video editing software that can do compositing. So he renders out his characters and layers of backgrounds separately to not only save on rendering time, but allows for effects that could be very difficult to achieve using 3D software alone. It was interesting animating a scene without a background, but I managed to get most of it done with Parker's input. Because Parker has control over how the background moves since it's a separate entity, we decided that he would take care of the character's driving animations. A last note is that working with these character models kind of strengthened my desire to upgrade my own models. There's just so much more room for subtlety and body language here that I don't have access to with Delura's characters. To summarize, I really enjoyed working on Adrenaline Street Racing, and I'll likely contribute more down the road. I certainly learned a lot about fully organic character models, rigging methods, animation. I feel like I got back way more regarding insight versus the effort that I actually put out. My experience with Parker's series has already changed the way that I work, and that's really exciting. Consequently, this also gives me one positive collaboration experience that I really feel that I needed. It might not eliminate my apprehension towards people who might want to contribute to Delura, but it helps. This concludes installment 5 of Developer's Diary, and we'll see how long Delura episode 5 takes to produce. It'll be kind of daunting with my desire to raise production values, but it'll get done eventually. Thanks for watching.